Welcome back, everybody. Got a little too zesty there. Welcome back to the Canyon. Welcome back to another installment of the Quick View series. Today is one that does not come up very often. Yes, we're testing a tire. No, we test tires all the time. What we're testing today is the little ones. The little ones. We don't do class 1 here a whole lot. I would say, I think in total number, I'm glancing around as if that's meaningful. I would say less than 10% of the fleet runs class 1. And I already kind of have I'm kind of set. I'm a terrible purchaser because I will buy what I already know works. So when I'm buying tires like this, it tends to be to test them specifically without them having another purpose. This is the S5 Kraken Claw from Injora, and when I went to bed last night before coming out to film this morning, I could have sworn that the bag said King Trekkers. But it's the Kraken Claw, which are KLRMs, which is fine. They will be running today on their included foams, which are very small. And when you see a foam that small relative to the height of the tire, you say, oh my. But the carcass is ribbed and very, very much like when we tested the class 1 comp pin. It's really thick. It's really thick. This is a 3+ millimeter carcass. When you punch through, you can fit to vent. You can feel the punch go shunk through the thickness. These are really, really thick. It's not something you can really show, but when you go like this, really thick. Basically, that's the thickness that Vanquish Red tires should be. So I don't have an insert that will fit this. Any dual stage, even Injora Class 1 silicones would be completely crushed over inside this. So we don't tend to opt for the included insert unless, well, unless it's an old-timey tire where the included insert is fantastic. I keep being reminded that I have to point this out. Right here, we have what's called a dauber bottle. Inside the dauber bottle is a liquid. The liquid is not magical. The liquid is what assists us in putting tires together. We do a nice little swipe around like this. Then we remember we haven't put the ring on, so we're gonna get the mystery sauce everywhere. Every other tire review I do, I get the question, what's that stuff you just put on the tires? This is bubble juice. You don't have to use it. It's not mandatory. Clearly, people mount tires without using bubble juice, and they do it all the time. But particularly when you're working with a very thin carcass and overstuffed foam, a sticky compound, that's why we use bubble juice. We also use bubble juice. I borrowed this from myself because I, for a long period of time, had to mount tubeless bicycle tires, and they are very feisty to get to seat. And why I stumbled across bubble juice is, well, I had a big quart of it, and when bubble juice dries, have you ever noticed, you ever blown bubbles before? You ever gone out like, as a kid or like a kid and blown bubbles? Bubble juice doesn't dry slippery. It dries kind of stickery. So when you use it on a tire and then you don't unmount that tire for a long period of time, it's like a very low tack adhesive. You have to peel the tire off the wheel. And what you generally never have to worry about is it popping back out of the bead, because they're nice and slicked up. For tire tests, I could genuinely get away with only putting in 3 screws. But there's some, and that's how easy. Why do we use bubble juice? That's why. I got a comment once, many moons ago, and as much as I resist trying to put on the internet voice, which is my voice for when I read a comment that makes me go, I've been mounting tires for years and I've never had to use bubble juice. And I was like, great. I mount 10, 12 sets of tires a week. If it saved me 1 minute, I would save 12 hours a year. If it saved 1 minute per set of tires. And I would honestly go on an unofficial record and say that it probably saves more time than that. You saw how long that took. And I can multitask, which is something that I can't actually do. What? Actually, 105. 106 would be right there. So we're 4 and 3:30 seconds. Yeah, 105. 105 by... I'm going to call that 40. It's right off of the line, but I'm going to call it... You might be able to call it 41. The Kraken Claw does have a fairly substantial side lug, and the side lug is basically just a continuation of the main lug. It wraps all the way down the side. The OG, like one of the first that we got from Injora in their S3 compound, was the Kraken Claw. And it felt like it showed great promise. The problem with that tire was, that was not a receptive tire. When you would change the insert, when you would do all sorts of things to it, it never got any better. It was as good as it was in testing. And every subsequent mod, anything, different inserts, moving, swapping it from wheel to go wheel, it never got any better. And that was the downfall of that. With the S5s, S5 is a fairly temperature responsive compound. It's full-blown predator weather out there right now, like 80 to 90% relative humidity. It is 50 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm not near my thermometer that tells me in all the numbers, but I want to say that's probably around, was that 10? 8 to 10 degrees Celsius. Does that sound about right for 50 degrees Fahrenheit? So these are optimal conditions for this. The density of the foam feels pretty appropriate for the size of the tire and the vehicle that it is fitted to. And it is fitted to a vehicle, his name is Pentabee, Lord Pentabee, because he used to be a Bronco. This is the first tire test being performed on Lord Pentabee in his new form, that being as an RC four-wheel drive Mojave. Underneath, he is all Element. He was bought as an Element Enduro SE and had all of his parts replaced multiple times, including the XF removed, skid moved forward in order to accommodate a Stealth X to incorporate shrink RC mounts. I tried to get lazy and ended up having to put a lot more work into it. His body is freshly assembled relative to the recording of this. This is his first time out driving on tires. He had a ghost ride on his all-day, day-to-day tires, which are Durtrax pivots on the exact same wheel in a different color. That's a good-looking colorway right there. So, it is my belief as a part-time dabbler in Class 1 that a Class 1, a 419 and smaller tire really kind of starts to sing when your wheelbase goes below a 12-inch wheelbase. You have to be 300 millimeters or less. Lord Pentabee here is at 287. And he showed great promise in what was effectively his ghost ride. I had intended to paint him white, and then I was like, you know what? Let's just put stickers on him, slap some wheels on him, and get some tire tests underway. So the Class 1, you're gonna have to ride along with me. It's a ride. The Class 1 tire test protocol is not fully fleshed out. I don't think that it should stop at all the exact same stations as the Class 2. The Class 3 is different from the Class 2. But for today, at least, we're basically going to execute the Class 2 protocol using a Class 1 vehicle on Class 1 tires, and we will interpolate the score of the tire accordingly. I can get a pretty good idea of a tire by, in equal measure, what it can do and what it can't do. So, S5 has been truly hit and miss for us in the past. This is only the second test of a Class 1 Injora tire, and the failing of the comp pin in Class 1 is that the carcass was so thick, the tire had no give to it. Now, this guy is, if you're familiar with Class 1 vehicles and hard bodies at all, you will know that this guy is probably just over 7 pounds, between 7 and 7.5 pounds. So he weighs as much as a fully built Vanquish Phoenix. He's a heavy little guy. And he's not leaf sprung, he is indeed 4-linked, 3-link front, chassis mounted steering. I tried to approximate something Class 1 as it is a place where I only dabble. So we're going to head out to some optimized rocks for Lord Pentabee to test the Class 1 Injora Kraken Claw, which I will call at least one time King Trekkers. But they are Kraken Claws, which are like KLRMs, but apparently, but different. They're the same, but different. So this is really a test of all the moving parts. I don't have a dedicated test wheel set for Class 1. So we are definitely stanced out. That's about a one, I want to say element axle is like between 185, 190 pin to pin. On a body that's probably about 185, 190 arch to arch. So we've definitely got more than half the tire out of the wheel well. Full coverage is out of the question on this axle. So what we're going to do is we're going to attack the protocol as we usually would, a Class 2 protocol. These were picking stuff up and flinging it all the way out here. I'm getting some mechanicals. There we go. That is a thing. Like I say, I dabble in Class 1, so I'm gonna. That pumpkin looks extraordinarily close to the ground. And the beauty of geometry and triangles, because the wheels are effectively so far apart relative to the vehicle, those wheels look really good with that body. It basically makes the center clearance effectively worse. It's easier to get the pumpkins hung up because they're farther away from the tire. I mean, these... We're definitely going to get some pirate ship noises. Whatever the shallowest hub I can put on these, it's going to require tinkering because I will have a dedicated set of Class 1 testing wheels. I would like to be about 15 millimeters narrower overall. They want a bit more sauce. Now, they're basically approximations of the KLR M. M standing for mud. So we forgive a little bit, you know. Mud is generally going to respond better to a bit more wheel speed than rock. That initial bite is pretty good. And what I'm noticing perhaps as much and or more than anything else is we're so wide. Oh, that drop back was all me. Also dealing with a very narrow tire on a Class 2 tire test, on a Class 1 tire. There you go, there you go. I think this is part and parcel of the Class 1 experience, which is you've got to maneuver because we don't have the clearances, we don't have leaf springs because I want to be able to look at the tire. I don't want to hit the limitation of the suspension almost immediately. That was pretty good, but because of my proclivity for hanging it up mechanically, I don't have as clear of a picture of final performance from Slick Rock as I ordinarily would. So I'm not going to speculate. I'm just going to run it like I run it. We're going to see. We're going to remember that our breakover is not as great because our tires are small. See that little pull right there? That's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. As I alluded to, we got a big overhang on the back. The bed is not bobbed. It is not chopped. It's not any of that stuff. That's a full-length bed. So I'm going to have to learn to get through the mechanicals. Oh! Again, a success can often tell you less than a failure. Yeah. These, not to play into the name, but these will claw. They will go. And again. I run no S5 tires in the entirety of my fleet, like 60 plus vehicles, because the weather condition that you are experiencing virtually right now, which is about, I want to say it was 53, 54 degrees Fahrenheit, 12, 13 degrees Celsius, about 85% relative humidity. It's not like this often. This is the low on a winter day, right? Like this is cold for the winter here. More often, when you get up at this time of day, it's already 85. And S5 compound does fall off, much like Predator, at higher temperatures. Solid. So, an S5 score is very much like a Proline Predator score. That score is going to be variable. You're going to get yourself into a window. If you live in Scotland, S5 is or the Pacific Northwest, S5 is probably going to do you great. This is indeed the desert, and it spends more time at 100 than it does at 40, certainly. So all I'm watching is the maneuverability. It actually punched back too hard right there. When I'm doing this, I'm looking at a lot of things. Speaking in relative terms, not too long ago, relative to this recording, I received a comment which basically stated something like, to paraphrase and boil it down, these tires would have done better if I could drive better. And some people might take some offense to this, but I just think it's funny. Because I can tell when a good tire is doing badly, and I can tell when a bad tire is doing goodly. I don't need to rely on the presence or lack of driving ability to determine if a tire is doing well, because I want to see what the tire is doing. Also, that comment bordered on the inane because it was related to a tire that was in rock crawling performance, a step above garbage. It was given an honorary score because I believe that in an application not rock crawling, it could be decently well. Probably does tremendously on mud, snow, the loose forest floor of your nearby wooded area. But in terms of what these tires are doing right now, no, it was objectively terrible. I love a needless and unprovoked condemnation almost as much as I love people jumping to the defense of things that need not be defended. Those tires would have been done better if you could drive better is patently ridiculous. Because I am an empiricist, and we have data gleaned from over 150 tire tests. That single stage foam in these, we may have that Injora problem. The Kraken Claw problem may persist, which is if you fuss and you fight and you try to find an insert that works better in here, you might not find it. It might be this. Those what looked like oversized, undersized foams, they're not sliding around in the tire. They're not acting weird. We have just this right amount of grip and slip. Now, as I said, there is an interpolation because I understand our track width is a little too wide. I'd like the tires in farther, but I'm not changing out my Diamond Pros. Also, let's not forget, Any result has to be taken with a grain of salt because I don't know how to drive. Don't forget that. A phrase which out of context sounds insane, but the beast looks very pink this morning. Very nearly. Any incline approached with sufficient velocity becomes a ramp. Yeah, pretty easy. Nothing on the pop back, but that's not what we're looking for at this pull-up. I want to hear the roo. I want to know that I'm operating at as low of a throttle input as can physically be input. It's a good bumping tire. There's good chevron to it. It's got a little bit of energy return to the foam and the thick carcass, but not terrible. There we are. Responsive to variable levels of throttle input, which is good. I think I just class 1'd it. Yep. He's a sprightly little guy. He's heavy, deceptively heavy. I know I mentioned it before, but it bears repeating. He weighs as much as a phoenix, but he is much, much smaller. Yeah. The class 1, the thickness of the carcass. The thickness of the carcass, see how we're getting those little hops? Not really responsive. We don't have that ability to conform, but really responsive to that, like, mid-band throttle input. And in terms of fallback, like giving up ground that you just fought for, minimal. Yeah. And I will take a tire that is responsive to input over one that is just overflowing with forward drive 10 times out of 10. The followers of the canyon, the knowers of the know, the 404s, they will understand this reference. That hummingbird is back and he's yelling at me again. That little tit, 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 tit. Spicy. As an ample side lug. Again, surprisingly good in terms of overall, that's not a good spot to be in terms of overall rock crawling performance, because we have to take into account that the tire in its original configuration, not in its interpretive configuration, has an M in it. M is for mud. So we lose a little bit of steering accuracy, but we don't lose it. We're converting it. We're filing it under stability instead due to our width. We want to try to pull those wheels in as much as we can. Can I get? It is a single stage. You saw that little puny single stage. It is a single stage that really does not behave like a single stage because carcass thickness. The memories will never fade of the class 1 comp pin and how sad I was that it didn't work. I applaud Injora. Why? Like, who's running a class 1 pin tire? They're disparate theories. They're basically the complete opposites. You don't put a pin on the same thing that you put a full-on scale tire on. They cut a little wide, but again, he's cutting a little wide today. In terms of first test performance, I think everything is doing well here. Imagine how good this could be going if I knew how to drive. It could really be something impressive. And don't think that the irony of me knocking that ball off while making that comment is lost on me. No, it is. I am viscerally aware of it. I really don't dislike a neutral gray sky. Makes color balancing in the edit a lot easier. I mean, I'm sure someone has noticed, or will only notice now that I'm pointing it out. There's no shadows. It's a shadowless day. See, this is one of the tests right here. This is one of the ones where I debate. Should this part specifically be included in a Class 1 protocol? Because I don't think that Class 1s are really well suited to doing this. This is kind of an in-between the wheelbase test for a Class 2, but it's a really too long for the wheelbase of a Class 1. That is, if you're rocking a 287mm wheelbase. Might be able to hack up the other side though. Nah, just absolutely rejected. Bed's hanging up, everything's hanging up. Now, am I sliding rail, or do I just? No, I'm definitely bound. This is another one. Ooh, yeah. We learn as much from the successes as we do from the failures. That is a solid bump. Now, I guess Class 1, it's as relevant to test self-right. We're not going to do too many. We're gonna go for the usual. We're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this. Modest. It's okay. And you know what? It went easy enough. I'll do a catcher. Big heavy pendulum of a body on top. Like I see, is self-righting really that? I don't know. This protocol is under construction. Honestly, I think the mixed environment is where this tire is going to do the best. This is kind of what this tire is for. And yeah, once we get past the clearance issues and it being as responsive as it is to differing levels of throttle input, it is a specific recipient for whom this tire is best suited. If your days look like today, cloudy, cool, humid, S5 is your jam. If you spend a split, 50% of the time off the rocks, 50% of the time on the rocks, something like this C1 Kraken Claw is going to do great. And they're inexpensive. That's one of the real big sellers of Injora for many people, myself included, is they're selling you a set of tires for what is typically the cost of a pair of tires. Now, this is a lot of belly to try to get over. Yeah, we're just pivoting on it. But the tire at least gives us the ability to pivot on it. I should be able to come up through a little easy notch here if I can get the belly clear. Get right there, okay, position a little more. It's so low. But I can't use I'm not a Class 1 guy because there's like 5 of them in the fleet. It's rare as well that I wish that a vehicle was skinnier. I wish he was skinnier. Like 8 millimeters a side. I don't know if I can get 8 millimeters a side, but I'm gonna try. I don't think these tires are doing appreciably better or worse because of the setup that we're running. I think we're getting a reasonable display of overall performance, poor handling skills of the operator, obviously notwithstanding.
pre-math executed. All that is left is for us to get it in the water. Yeah, if I could just stay out of the mechanicals. Yeah, there we go. I had a curiosity, which is every tire and insert, regardless of what the tire is and what the insert is as well, they all take some time to develop a real symbiosis to get that relationship going. The foam kind of settles into the tire. So when you get that first hit at Slick Rock, it's not uncommon for a tire to flail a little bit. This is the wet corridor here. We get a little shuttle to it. A little more throttle in it. I think that's the M of it. You know, we have a reasonably big lug. Luckily, that big lug leads into a big sidewall, so we get a pretty high level of responsiveness. I'm not mad about that at all. Whee! I do have a 4-way manifold over there. Do I want to install some sort of system where I can push a button and it just waters down the corridor? Well, yeah, I mean, that'd be super cool. Until then, it's the hose that I keep forgetting to turn off after we're done, and then it explodes. So that hose is like, it's just long enough to reach from where I am. So if that hose blows again, I'm going to have to cut up another piece of hose. Honestly, it feels exactly the same. And then we went, ooh, that little catch right there. I'm going to give it, this is fairly indicative of a 1/10 dock. So you've got the dry score, and then how do we translate the wet score? It's rare to see anything other than it's -1, 0, +1. That's pretty much where tires fall. Some tires become catastrophic in the wet. S5 compound is pretty good, and we are in S5 weather. Get it, get it, get it. I don't know why I can't get out of this. I got out of it. Let me get one more. I'll go real far easy side. Yeah, we're watching that low speed. There's a little bit of continental drift. We're doing a little bit of side. Real nice. Real nice right there. As a matter of fact, once they got a little wetter, they got a little better. Everything's better when it's wetter. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Let's get into a position here for not that. Let's get into a position for, I want, that looks pretty good. The Class 1 Injora Kraken Claw arrives after extracting its 0.1 deduction there for wet at a 96.5, and as always, S5 compound has an asterisk next to it, because if you live someplace where it gets really hot, maybe not. Let's see this one. What was that? Same with Predator. This lands sharing a score of 96.5 on the leaderboard. Is the 1.9 Proline TSL Bogger, which are gigantic, like 5.4 inches. The 1.9 J-Concept Scorpio and the 1.9 Rhino Moza. You add into that the Kraken Claw S5 in Class 1. What a bonkers array. That might be the biggest split of, if I had all 4 of those tires and could put them all side by side for you, what? There is no lug commonality or similarity. We go from 5.4, 475, 465, and 419. 96.5 is a strange place to land, and your results may definitely vary. If your vehicle is lighter and you put these on there, you may get a little bit of skatey. I think you can go a little heavier and not worry about it. So if the bed on your hard body is full of nonsense, like 3D printed chainsaws and ice chests and whatnots, might actually improve a little. We're getting very little squish on the front. The carcass is thick. I feel like as they break in, they'll probably get a little better. And I don't mean feather in. I mean as they break in and the rubber isn't as stiff as it is fresh out of the package. Those tires get better after they're worn in. Every tire gets better after it's worn in. That's how it works. And then you'll get to a point where the traction falls away. And how quickly that fall away, how steep that curve is, does that tire have the performance of a lithium battery where it just goes, I suck now? Or is it a proper bell curve where the traction gets better, and then because of the nature of a bell curve, you spend the least amount of time in optimized traction? A Traxxas Canyon Trail, never forget, a cut Canyon Trail is the lithium battery. It goes until the lugs are basically worn off, and then the traction starts to fall. So that's what we hope for. That's not the kind of thing we test in a quick view. It's called a quick view, not because it takes place in a short period of time, because it takes place in a quick view format, which is those tires, those tires right there were in an Injora branded bag about an hour ago. Like I pulled the little zipper, I unzipped the thing off the top. That's how a quick view goes. This is the first time these tires left the building, touched the ground, hit a rock. This is how they did out of the bag. This is what we call an objective study. It is a collection of empirical evidence where we use the same testing protocol over and over and over again. It's science because we write it down. And then we will know, because some tires will score worse than this and some tires will score better, and sure, conditions will play a factor in that, which is why I say every tire test has an asterisk next to it. It is a ballpark figure, but if you live in a similar climate or your conditions look like this, you can generally apply these to your situation. So take everything in life with a grain of salt, and a grain is acceptable. Watch your blood pressure, everybody. Don't put too many grains of salt on any individual thing. I do thank you indeed so much for sticking through me here with this one. The first, Lord Pentabee in his Mojave configuration, no longer a Bronco, but now a Hilux, the Bilux, because we got to keep the 5Bs in there. Lord Pentabee, 5Bs. It went well. I think a 96.5 is a pretty good output. It's not a tire for here, though, because in a couple of months, they will be rendered unusable, which is why he spends his day-to-day on Duratrax pivots, which don't give a care whether it's hot nor cold. I have no recollection of where the pivots scored on the leaderboard. You'd have to look that up yourself. So, thank you so much again, everybody, for joining us here. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. In between now and then, please, one and all, do your very best. Have a good one, everybody. We'll see you again here from the canyon with whatever else. I think him in his short wheelbase configuration, I think we did, let me get one little more reverse in here. Right here. I think we did just fine